The Obama administration this week says the ban on deepwater oil drilling will stay in place, at least for a few more months. Gulf Coast residents have been pleading to end the ban, and as the legal fight over that continues, shallow water drillers say they're getting caught in the crossfire. Let's turn to D.C., where Chief Washington correspondent Peter Cook is standing by with a special guest to talk about this issue. Peter?
Julie, thanks very much. I'm joined by Jim Noe. He's Senior Vice President of Hercules Offshore, the biggest shallow water driller in the Gulf of Mexico. The company is part of a coalition of shallow water drillers trying to lobby Washington to ease what they call a de facto moratorium on shallow water drilling. First of all, Jim, welcome back to Bloomberg. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Peter.
On paper, the ban in place is on deep water drilling, beyond 500 feet. You all operate in waters less than 500 feet, but you say the reality is you're not drilling either. Walk me through what's happening here, the reality.
Well, the Department of Interior lifted the moratorium on shallow waters on May 28th. And we were pleased that we were able to prove to the administration, the American public, Secretary Salazar, that there's a difference between deepwater drilling and what we do in the shallow waters, which we've been doing since the late 40s and have drilled nearly 50,000 wells safely prior to what happened on the deepwater BP Macondo well. But what we've seen is that the administration has not issued drilling permits for shallow water. There is no moratorium in effect, but in practice, we're not getting drilling permits. There's only been 3 drilling permits issued since April, the BP Macondo incident, and what that has translated.
Normally you would get
3, 4, 5 a week. We've gotten 3 in 3.5 months. And so what that means is, of the 46 available shallow water rigs, we all hear about the 33 deep water rigs. Well, there's 46 rigs in the shallow water drilling business. 14 of those rigs sitting here today are idle because they don't have permits. And by the end of the summer, about 70% of the fleet will be idle unless we start getting drilling permits issued by the administration, which we're not seeing.
Well, let me just, the administration, the Interior Department telling me in a statement yesterday, listen, shallow water drilling does continue, but understandably, given what happened with the BP well, there are new environmental and safety standards, even for shallow water drillers. They want you all to meet higher standards, even in the shallow water. Why isn't that reasonable?
It is reasonable. And the BOEM, the Department of Interior group that's now charged with offshore drilling, formerly known as the MMS, issued new safety rules in June. We quickly complied with those new safety rules. We thought they were a good idea. But we have been submitting new information and new permits, and what we haven't seen is actually the review of those permits and the timely issuance of those permits. And what we've told the Department of Interior and the administration is that rigs are now going idle, and we will soon have thousands of people without work to do. Just at Hercules, we have 600 or so employees that are on rigs on our payroll that don't have work to do. At some point,
are you going to have to start laying people off?
We're going to cling to our workers as long as possible. But at some point, the industry will have to lay workers off and mothball shallow water drilling rigs, and that's frustrating since there's not a shallow water moratorium. Our rigs are very different from the deep water rigs. Like I said, we've been doing this since the 40s safely. Our blowout preventers are on the rigs themselves.
So they're not at the bottom of the ocean, as was the case with the BP. We're
not struggling with the subsea issues that BP has to struggle with. These are very traditional wells. We've been drilling them, like I said, for generations. They're predominantly natural gas. They're in a very mature field. It's really night and day from shallow water to deep water. And the administration's recognized that, but what they haven't done is actually issue new drilling permits. And I think on the 5th anniversary of Katrina, it's interesting to note that Senator Landrieu of Louisiana has said that this moratorium will have a more lasting impact than Hurricane Katrina will or had. And that's real, is that people are going to be soon out of a job.
When is the decision going to be made to mothball these things? Is there a chance, like the deepwater rigs, that some of these rigs could head to other countries?
We're looking for work outside the United States. The problem is that there's a lot of idle jackup rigs because of the global economic crisis in many parts of the world. So really, the shallow water business is left with one choice, which is how long do we keep people on the payroll? How long do we pay to keep rigs maintained? Hoping that the administration will issue shallow water drilling permits. Is that weeks? Maybe not weeks, but it's certainly by the end of the summer into the fall, hard and grisly decisions have to be made.
Real quick, you're here in Washington, obviously meeting with administration folks as well. Are you getting any encouraging signs at all?
We get lots of encouraging rhetoric. What we don't get is action. And the action we need is issue drilling permits for the shallow waters.
All right, Jim Noe of Hercules Offshore, appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us here on Bloomberg. Julie, Mark, we'll send it back to you in New York.
Thanks very much, Peter. Appreciate it.